For me, liberalism can be summed up in a few words. Don't be an asshole. Or to put it another way, don't be George Will. Because this week, George F. Will, the F stands for George F. Will, the non-thinking man's thinker, wrote in the Washington Post in his own column about what he calls the quote, supposed epidemic of rape on college campuses, end quote. In it, he accuses female students of seeking the, quote, coveted status of victimhood because it confers privileges. That's right. This is all true. George Will's argument is that victims proliferate because of survivor privileges.
Jesus.
The female students will lie about sexual assaults because they want to be part of the coveted rape club with all the perks you get from having a rape club membership.
Half off your next rape.
Half off. We know this to be true because on campuses you can see long lines of women waiting to get their goodie bags for reporting rapes. The question George Will doesn't answer is what exactly are the privileges for surviving a rape? Spending an evening with a rape kit? The humiliation of making your private life public in order to get justice? And the bonus of esteem-crushing shame and losing trust and feelings of fear and anxiety that will follow a rape victim for the rest of their lives. In typical Republican derangement, he puts the ultimate blame on Obama and something he calls progressivism. He throws around numbers to show that reported sexual assaults at colleges are nothing to be alarmed about. And what George Will doesn't realize is that sexual assault is underreported because, well, there's people like George Will in the world. Most disturbing, George Will describes in detail an actual rape where a female student is forced into non-consensual sex with a former partner. He mockingly calls her a quote-unquote sexual assault victim because she filed a report 6 weeks after the incident, and the Obama administration will be, quote, riding to the rescue of people like her. He asserts that non-consensual sex is merely a product of the hookup culture on college campuses. And who would know better about the hookup culture on college campuses than George F. Will? George Will, the only man who combs his actual hair to look like a toupee and has all the sexual appeal of Abe Vigoda. Abe Vigoda played Fish. You know, I felt like I deserved survivor privileges for just reading that fucking column. For those who might be unfamiliar with George Will, he's one of the most respected and influential intellects on the right. When he isn't waxing tediously about baseball, he disdains the left's bleeding heart while celebrating the right's lack of heart. Looking like a cross between Professor Bunsen Honeydew and Beaker, George Will has maintained an impressive 40-year career of getting everything wrong. In his writing, using turns of phrase stolen from H.L. Mencken, he grumpily sneers at every minor progress that American society has made over the decades. On the fast-moving road of history, he insists on driving on the wrong side. George Will opposed the Civil Rights Amendment. He's opposed to minimum wage. He believes that money in politics should be unlimited. He considers climate science a big conspiracy. He applauds health companies that refuse treatment for HIV or AIDS. He's against Social Security and Medicare. He supported the war in Iraq until it became so unpopular he changed his position. He's also against industrial regulations, affirmative action, Roe versus Wade, blue jeans, weekends, comfortable furniture, rescue dogs, the smiles of newborn babies, dessert after dinner, kids playing on his lawn, and happiness. George is a man of personal integrity and honesty. His wife was Bob Dole's communications director, and she was a consultant and speechwriter for Rick Perry and Michelle Bachmann's presidential campaigns. All that time, George remained a political commentator for the media, never disclosing his conflict of interest. He recently became employed at Fox News, filling the void of muttering supercilious dork who also serves as public intellectual for the frat boy date rapists. He has spawned armies of young mini George Wills running around Washington think tanks. Among the children of the bow tie are Tucker Carlson, Ben Shapiro, and Rich Lowry, douchebags who believe it is the height of cleverness to defend stupidity, particularly if stupidity is paying enough. George Will's article about sexual assault and survivor privilege was greeted with repulsion, a response that isn't surprising if you're a human being with a basic sense of decency, which the editors of the Washington Post apparently do not have. Because the following day, the newspaper doubled down on blaming the victims with an article entitled, "One Way to End Violence Against Women? Stop Taking Lovers and Get Married." Wow. Again, it's the female's fault that she's the victim of violence because she's not married. This ignores the basic fact that women in our society face violence not from walking down the street, but from inside their home. You know, I'm starting to think that right-wingers might have issues with women. You know, many people are calling for the Washington Post to fire George Will. Sadly, in our media world, George will not be punished for this column, but rewarded with bonuses in his paycheck. And his editor will get a raise in salary for the traffic generated by his trolling of rape victims. So no matter how many times people say no, George Will still thinks they mean yes. Besides, if he was fired, I bet he'd only play the victim card anyway.